Chapter 7: The Alchemist of Brokenbank. The sea breeze carried the scent of salt and damp wood as the ship finally docked at Brokenbank, the small but bustling port town nestled along the jagged coastline of the Wavechaser Islands. The docks were alive with movement, fishermen unloading their hauls, merchants haggling over exotic wares, and sailors laughing over shared drinks. Three Earrings, the sleek and sharp-eyed tabaxi captain, stood on the deck with her arms crossed, her tail flicking lazily behind her. She glanced at Nathaniel, Maddogg, and Azmadan as they disembarked. "You're looking for an alchemist, yes?" she purred, her voice smooth but commanding. "Her name's Ethel. Old tortle woman, lives deeper inland, doesn't care much for the noise of the village." She flicked her ears in mild amusement. "Tell her I sent you, and she'll give you what you need. Shouldn't be too difficult, unless she's in one of her moods." Azmadan furrowed his brow. "Moods?" Three Earrings simply smirked before turning away, already barking orders to her crew to restock the ship and arrange trades with the locals. The market of Brokenbank. Before heading to find Ethel, the group took a detour through the village market, a chaotic but lively maze of stalls and street vendors selling all manner of goods, dried fish, tropical fruits, trinkets, and weapons forged from repurposed shipwrecks. Maddogg, drawn in by the scent of burning incense and the glint of something metallic, stepped into a small, dimly lit stall where an array of odd masks, charms, and ritualistic carvings lined the walls. The shopkeeper, an elderly goblin with wiry grey hair and a lazy eye, looked up from his work, carving a small wooden idol with a tiny hooked knife. "You buy?" "Yes," the goblin croaked, squinting up at Maddogg. "You have face, I have masks. Perfect match." Maddogg ignored the strange greeting and scanned the masks. His eyes settled on one made of dark, polished wood, carved into the fierce visage of a jungle spirit. It had sharp, angular features and red-painted tribal markings that gave it an intimidating, almost primal look. "How much for this one?" Maddogg asked, lifting the mask. The goblin smirked. "Ah, that one, special. Hand-carved from driftwood of ship swallowed by Ethel himself." He leaned in conspiratorially. "Very powerful, but for you, big man, only 20 gold. Nathaniel, standing nearby, arched a brow. "That's quite a steep price for something that's probably been gathering dust in here for years." Azmadan crossed his arms. "Ethel doesn't eat ships. And even if he did, I doubt he'd regurgitate the wood for you to make a mask out of." The goblin scoffed. Fine. 15 gold. But no lower. Or Ethel curse your next dice roll." Maddogg let out a short laugh before tossing the goblin the coin. He lifted the mask, turning it over in his hands before sliding it onto his face. The fit was snug, and the slight scent of aged wood mixed with something faintly herbal filled his nostrils. "Yeah, I like it," Maddogg muttered, voice muffled behind the mask. "Good purchase." With that settled, the group finally set off toward Ethel's hut. The deeper they moved into the island, the denser the foliage became. The scent of earthy moss and damp wood hung in the air, mingling with the distant chirp of unseen creatures. Eventually, they came across a small, crooked hut nestled in the shade of towering palm trees. The structure looked like it had been there for centuries, with moss creeping up its wooden beams and wind chimes made from shells and bones clinking softly in the breeze. Outside, seated on a rocking chair, was an elderly tortle woman, puffing leisurely on a long-stemmed pipe. The air around her was thick with the pungent, earthy scent of herbs, and her half-lidded, buzz-eyed gaze made it clear she was in no rush for anything. Azmadan stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Excuse me, are you Ethel?" The tortle squinted at him, slowly exhaling a plume of sweet-smelling smoke. What's that now? Are you Ethel?" Azmadan repeated, a little louder this time. She rocked in her chair, looking him up and down, or at least near him, as if her eyes couldn't quite decide where to focus. "Ethel? Who's asking?" Nathaniel smirked, arms crossed. "Three Earrings sent us. She said you could help us out." Ethel perked up slightly. Ah, that scoundrel's still alive? Ha! That one always knew how to weasel her way out of trouble. She gave a raspy chuckle before looking at Azmadan again. And what was your name again, sweetheart? Azmadan. Azmodan? No, Azmadan. Azmandin? Azmadan sighed, rubbing his temples. Azmar. Dan. Ah, I see. Nice to meet Y.A. Ashmeladon. Maddogg and Nathaniel snorted behind their hands, barely containing their amusement. Azmadan gritted his teeth. We need something to help us breathe underwater. Potions or an enchantment, anything that'll work for a group. Ethel tapped her chin. Underwater, hey, well, I was gonna sell you some of my water breath-in potions, but... She reached into her pouch, pulling out a small, aged amulet with blue glowing runes etched into its surface. I think this lil's beauty will suit YA better. One of you wears it, and it'll let your whole group breathe underwater, no fuss. Azmadan eyed the amulet, impressed. That's actually perfect. How much? Ethel waved a hand lazily. Call it 150 gold. Special discount for 3 earrings, friends. Azmadan counted out the gold and handed it over. As she pocketed the coins, he hesitated, eyeing her pipe. What exactly are you smoking? Ethel blinked, looking down at her pipe like she'd forgotten it was there. Oh, this? It's sood. Good herb. Helps YA relax, helps YA sleep. Some folks say it even gives YA fun little dreams. Maddogg, grinning, nudged Azmadan. You should get some. You're always wound up so tight, maybe it'll help you relax for once. Nathaniel joined in. Yeah, in fact, Ethel, can you tell us more about the history of this herb? Azmadan shot them both a warning glare. Don't encourage her. Ethel, however, did not need encouragement. She launched into a long-winded tale about the ancient history of Sood, complete with pointless tangents about her youth, a cousin she never liked, and a fish that stole her sandwich once. Azmadan sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. All right, fine, I'll buy some. He handed over more gold, and Ethel happily gave him a large bag of dried Sood leaves, before waving them off with a smoky smile. By the time they returned to the docks, the crew had finished their business, and 3 earrings was ready to set sail. With the amulet secured and supplies restocked, they departed Brokenbank, heading back toward what remained of Palma Flora, unaware of what awaited them upon their return. Chapter 8: Tides of Deception. The darkening sky stretched above the Wavechaser as it cut through the calm waters, heading towards the ruins of Palma Flora. A warm sea breeze carried the scent of salt and distant storms, mingling with the gentle creak of the ship's timbers. Lanterns flickered, casting long shadows over the deck where Azmadan, Nathaniel, Maddogg, and Bob sat in a quiet circle. Azmadan unwrapped a bundle from his satchel, a fine wooden pipe and a pouch of fragrant, herbal sood given to him by Ethel. With a practiced hand, he packed the pipe, lighting it with a spark of magic. Maddogg grinned, leaning in eagerly, while Bob chuckled, rubbing his hands together. Go on, Nathaniel, have a try, Maddogg said, exhaling a slow plume of smoke. Nathaniel waved him off. I'll pass. Someone has to keep a clear head. Bob, meanwhile, inhaled deeply, letting out a contented sigh before his eyes rolled back, and he slumped over with a heavy thud. Azmadan and Maddogg erupted into laughter, shaking their heads. Lightweight, Maddogg muttered, nudging Bob with his boot. Nathaniel, restless, stood and began a quiet walk around the deck. The ship rocked gently beneath his boots as he moved towards the stern, where a hushed voice caught his ear. Instinct guiding him, he pressed himself into the shadows, creeping closer. At the rear of the ship, the half-orc crew member stood alone, back turned to Nathaniel, speaking into a sending stone. Yes, sir. They're heading toward Palma Flora now. No deviation. Should reach by midday tomorrow. A pause. No suspicion. The captain trusts me. The cargo is safe. Nathaniel's blood ran cold. The Clovis Concord. He knew the name well, the ruling authority over the Menagerie Coast, an expansive trade empire with a grip like iron. They weren't known for their kindness to smugglers or mercenaries, and Three Earrings had never been on good terms with them. The orc shifted, as if sensing something, and Nathaniel retreated before he was noticed, slipping away into the night. He mulled over what he had heard, but decided against raising the alarm yet. He'd need time to think, so instead, he returned to his bunk, mind racing with possibilities. The next morning, the sun rose golden over the waves as the crew stirred. Azmadan stretched, yawning, before making his way to Three Earrings, who was studying the horizon with her feline grace. "We're looking for someone," Azmadan said, his tone casual but probing. "A man named Takast. You heard of him?" Three Earrings' ears twitched as she considered. "Aye. That name passed through my ears not long ago." He made his way to Darktoe. Not sure what he was looking for, but people who go to Darktoe tend to be up to no good. Maddogg exchanged a look with Azmadan. This was a lead. A dangerous one, but a lead nonetheless. The rest of the day passed in slow preparation, the trio discussing their approach for dealing with the Sahuagin leader while Bob, still groggy from the previous night, nursed a headache. By midday the next day, the serenity of the open sea was shattered by the blast of a warning horn. A ship, its hull emblazoned with the sigil of the Clovis Concord, closed in fast. The Wavechaser braced as the Concord ship pulled alongside, boarding planks slamming onto the deck. Armored enforcers stormed across, weapons drawn. Three Earrings, one of the officers barked, his voice edged with command. "You're under suspicion of smuggling and aiding fugitives." Maddogg, leaning lazily against a mast, scoffed. "Never heard of her." The officer's eyes narrowed. He stepped closer, his glare unrelenting. Maddogg's fingers curled into a fist, muscles tensing. Then, without warning, he swung. His punch cracked against the officer's jaw, sending him stumbling back. Chaos erupted. Blades flashed as the Concord enforcers clashed with the crew of the Wavechaser. Azmadan, summoning a gust of wind, sent two soldiers sprawling. Nathaniel parried a strike, his shield deflecting a blade before countering with a quick thrust. Maddogg, laughing like a man unhinged, launched himself into the fray, cutting through the enemy ranks with brutal efficiency. Three Earrings fought with feline agility, striking and evading in a blur of motion. Bob, recovering from his haze, tackled a Concord soldier overboard, sending them both splashing into the sea. Maddogg spotted the Concord captain, an imposing figure in plated armor, barking orders. With a wild grin, Maddogg charged and dropkicked him, sending the captain soaring backwards onto his own ship. The Clovis Concord, realizing they were losing ground, began a swift retreat. Maddogg, however, wasn't finished. With a roar, he leapt from the Wavechaser onto the enemy vessel, landing in front of the captain. Before the man could react, Maddogg headbutted him with a sickening crunch, then drove his sword through his chest. The triumphant moment lasted only a heartbeat before he realized just how many Concord soldiers remained. "Ah, sure." The Concord ship began pulling away, and Maddogg, realizing he was badly outnumbered, turned and ran. With no other choice, he hurled himself overboard, crashing into the waves below. As the Wavechaser sailed past, Nathaniel and Azmadan rushed to the edge, throwing a rope over. Maddogg surfaced, coughing seawater, and grabbed hold, climbing back aboard. Dripping wet, he grinned at the others. That went well. Nathaniel sighed, shaking his head, while Azmadan just laughed. The battle had ended, but the repercussions were only beginning.